1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you live from Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, streaming live on College Station, the iHeart app, and iTunes.com. This program is reposted and archived on Spreaker.com. Don't forget, you can join us in the studio right now. Hello everybody. We're live on Facebook Live. Also, good news, we're rebroadcast on Sunday evenings at 11 p.m. each week. Hi there. In case you didn't know, this is Rabbi Pearl. Today we're honored to be joined in the studio with Congresswoman Kathleen Rice, who is the former prosecutor, but currently the United States representative for the New York's 4th Congressional District. So, welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I'd just like to begin, if you don't mind, a statement, some words, because in the aftermath of the horrifying tragedy in Pittsburgh, 11 synagogue worshippers were brutally murdered while in the middle of prayers. 6 others, including police officers, were wounded. The FBI special agent in the charge of the Pittsburgh office, Bob Jones, said this was the most horrific crime scene he's witnessed in his 22 years in the career with the Bureau. We are deeply pained by the senseless act of hate and violence that took place in Pittsburgh, and continue to pray for the speedy recoveries of the victims and their families. So while we're shocked and shaken by everything that has happened, we are grateful to the police and all the first responders for their heroic efforts and for helping to save the lives of so many. The Rebbe, the Rabbi Schneerson, of blessed memory, taught of the need to turn tears into action. Beneath the surface of every terrible experience there lies the opportunity to grow and increase in goodness. Every step back can and must become an impetus for a giant leap forward. At this difficult time, let us take courage from the age-old Jewish adage, a little bit of light will dispel a great deal of darkness. It's an indisputable reality. When light and goodness encounters darkness and hate, light and goodness will, without fail, prevail. Let's each dedicate our lives a little more to goodness and kindness, to truth, to boundless love of our fellow in the true Jewish spirit. To take on an additional mitzvah, so that each of us and every one of us in our own way can create a personal space of love and holiness. And as we try to grasp how such vile thoughts can lead to such heinous actions, we must never allow ourselves to despair to the point when we can't somehow triumph over evil and hatred. For now, dear friends, as the Tree of Life congregants came together to celebrate the Sabbath, we, and people of all goodwill, let us all come together to mourn with them. Please, I encourage all people of goodwill to add in the goodness and kindness to those around you and to the people you may have never ever met. The fact that God created each and every one of us means that we each, no matter our race or creed, are extremely important to the Almighty God, and we each have a unique purpose in this world that no one else can fulfill. When we recognize that, we will come to appreciate the immense importance and the value of each and every individual, especially if they are different from us. So thank you, Congresswoman Kathleen Rice, for joining us. I know such a serious opening here. We look forward for good news for the country, for the community, and for the individual. So welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi.
What do you think after this Pittsburgh? Can you imagine? I had no idea when you would come to join us, this would be happening.
I know. It's just so terrible. Like everyone across the country, I was glued to the TV and just praying for the lost souls and those who were injured. And really, I thank you for putting those words of thanks out to the first responders and to all of the police officers, the FBI, who really... You can't put a number on how many lives they saved by their quick action, but we really have to have a conversation in this country about what we do with such hatred that plays itself out every day, whether it's in our schools or our houses of worship. I don't have any answers, Rabbi. Hopefully you do.
Do you think we should stop tolerating any form of hate speech that comes from anybody and anywhere?
It's a conversation that we have to have. One of the things that makes this country so great is that we're free to basically do whatever we want within the bounds of the law, and that includes saying some incendiary things. But I would just like to get back to kind of the rules that existed in my household with my 9 brothers and sisters growing up. You treat others the way you want to be treated, and you treat each other with respect and love and dignity. And I don't know, I feel like those seem to be vestiges of the past.
Did you ever get a chance to say anything with 9 brothers?
No, not much.
No, not much. Okay.
That's why I try not to stop talking now.
A lot of people have asked me, how do you know Kathleen Rice? I want everyone to know that when you were running for DA in Nassau County, I found where your campaign office was on the corner of Willis and Old Country Road. Now it's a huge building there. And I showed up that day with containers of kosher chicken soup. Mm-hmm. And everybody had a wonderful, everybody forgot about politics for about 15 minutes and enjoyed that. And our friendship went from there, and then now I'm just always wondering, Kathleen, you have a tremendous career in the prosecuting side of the world. Then you had to suddenly go to Washington. How did the transition, was there a transition?
Rabbi, that was a very difficult transition because as DA, you can basically do whatever you want in terms of what you think is right for the community that you serve. You can make decisions and you can effect change very quickly. And, the wheels of D.C. grind very slowly. And the legislative process right now has really disappeared. I mean, we don't get much done in Washington. So that aspect has been a little frustrating for someone like me who's used to being in jobs where you can actually get things done. But my hope is that, if we get down to business, in this new Congress that we're going to have after the elections next week or the week after next, November 6th, that, we can get Democrats and Republicans to put their differences aside and work together and compromise and get things done.
I often think, are we, the general public, getting the real truth? Is there still friendship going on between Republicans and the Democrats, or is it just like what we read all the time?
There is, Rabbi. I have to say, I work very closely, for instance, with Pete King, who represents the 2nd Congressional District on Long Island. He's a Republican. He's a great guy. We've co-sponsored bills together, the No-Fly, No-Buy bill. And, I have lots of Republican friends all across the country. And I'd like to say that, each party has their extremes. And what we need to do is kind of move past the extremes of both parties and grow the middle so that we can get people like Pete King, who is not afraid to reach across the aisle to a Democrat like me and vice versa with him. So I think we have to just focus on doing that because it's not as vitriolic as maybe the media wants to paint it out to be.
Do you think there'll come a time we can bury the hatchet and just work together for the well-being?
I certainly hope so. Now, this is going to sound very self-serving, but if Democrats were to take the House back, and with some changes within our own caucus, if we were to take power of the House, I think that my hope is that would then force some level of compromise, because if the Senate stays in Republican control and the House is Democratic control, if we want to get anything done, by definition, we're going to have to work together. And so that's why I'm really hoping that there is some change on Election Day this year.
Balance is so important in life, at every level.
Absolutely.
Any extremes is no good. The great Maimonides was saying that person must always live the golden rule, the middle ground. Any extremes to the right or the left are no good. Down the middle in this, I think an important part is to recognize the strength each person has. See, God made a world where we're all created in the image of God, whoever we are. Yet at the same time, He made different people, different talents. Where we go wrong is where we think that our own talents is the only thing. And really, it's each of us complementing each other in so many different ways. There's a famous teaching that we have. I hope I remember it right, Kathleen. It says like this: if I am I, because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then you are not you and I'm not I. But if I am I because I am I, and you are you because you are you, then you are you and I am I. I think I put everybody to sleep out there. Who's going to repeat that?
Something to think about.
Oh my goodness! So there are lots of people out, young people, who may consider going into public office. What do you
Rabbi,
do you tell them to stay out of it?
No, I hope they do. I hope they do. You know, we have seen a record number of women, of veterans, of young people heeding the call to public service and running for public office for the first time all across this country. And that gives me so much hope that instead of just bemoaning the state of where our government is today, we actually have people who say, you know what, I'm going to get up and throw my hat in the ring and not just sit around and complain, but actually try to be a part of the change that we need. And that's what makes me very hopeful.
And then there's people tell me that I'm not going to run. People shouldn't run because if you have skeletons in the closet, they're going to... The media will bring it out, and you're going to be dead on arrival. It
is pretty brutal, I will say. You have to be prepared to have your family, your entire life kind of out there for everyone to pick through, which is rough. And I think that is in large part why one of the things that prevents people from running. But, you know, the interesting thing is with Facebook and Twitter and all of these social media platforms, you have young people literally growing up in public. I mean, I don't know if I would have survived with the social media the way it is today. There's no such thing as privacy anymore. People just put their whole lives out there. There's, you know, so I don't know if you know, things that you've done in your past would actually act as a barrier to getting involved in public service. But I worry that kids spend too much time staring at their phones and tweeting and doing all those kind of things. And what that does is prevent you from actually engaging in face-to-face conversations with people. You know, conflict resolution, everything is done on a social media platform. So I don't know. I think it's too early to tell what kind of long-term effects that's going to have.
No. Wow, what a world we live in. The fact that you're kind of stymied there, as you said, up in Washington. So over the years that you've been there so far, is it difficult to get ideas or laws enacted? Is it an order of pecking order? Like if you're more there longer, you're going to be heard, and if you're just the last one on the totem pole, I mean,
well, that's a very good question, Rabbi, because as I said, I like to get things done, and I've been able to get some laws passed,
right.
In large part because I've been willing to reach across the aisle and work with Republicans to do it. But there is a project that we've undertaken. It's called Rebuild Congress. And the goal of this, and it's being done by a group of bipartisan members of the House. And the goal is to make...
Does everybody hear that Kathleen's saying there's actually bipartisan things going on over there?
Lots of bipartisan things that, you know, quite frankly, the media doesn't really report on because it's not sexy and it's not controversial. But we are trying to get Congress to work the way it was initially meant to work. Each member should have the ability to bring a bill that they can get support for on the floor for a vote. And a lot of those rules are not followed by leadership for, in my opinion, you know, political reasons. And I'm not saying this is just what the Republicans do, because when Democrats are in control, they do the same thing. So my hope is that we can, you know, again, in a bipartisan way, effect some level of rule changes so that we can have more legislative action. You know, for instance, Rabbi, you know, just going back to the gun issue, if you asked the majority of Americans if you have to go through a universal, you know, background check before you can buy a gun, people would say, of course, that's the law. Well, no, it's not. And so there are things that we can do in Washington to address the issue of gun violence that we don't for political reasons, because you have the NRA, which is a very popular and powerful lobby, you know, giving money to Republicans so that they can prevent just that from happening. So there are a lot of things that we can do to make Washington work better, but we have to really grow the middle of both parties and get more people there who are willing to compromise.
Wow. We're speaking with Congresswoman Kathleen Rice, who's been a friend of ours for many, many years. And I must tell you, dear friends, as many of you know, that we suffered a tragedy in our family this week where our own grandchild, Ariel, was laid to rest. I want everyone to know how much support and calls you called me, Kathleen. It was really, our family appreciates that. And your representative, Beth Melman, came to the actual funeral. which was so meaning to us. And one of the things that I wanted to share, say thank you for that, and it means a lot to a family that people would take time out, and for someone who they didn't know, a child. One of the things that people have been asking us is, literally around the world, thousands of people kind of lined up to do mitzvahs, good deeds.